The 911 call came at 11:47 p.m. "My partner. She's dead. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to." Detective Marcus Webb arrived at 4847 Millbrook Drive to find Kate Owen handcuffed in the living room, Margaret Hayes' body crumpled beside a glass coffee table. Blood, head trauma. An apparent break-in. Kate's confession seemed straightforward. She'd come to confront Margaret. They'd argued. Margaret fell. An accident. Except the autopsy found arsenic in Margaret's system. Gradual poisoning over weeks. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was premeditation. Kate Owen had built a perfect second life. After her divorce from Richard at 42, she came out and thrived. She built a consulting business. At 58, she was accomplished, respected, authentic. Then she met Margaret Hayes, a venture capitalist, wealthy, confident, everything Kate wanted to be. For 15 years, they built a life together. Kate believed she'd finally earned peace. She had no idea what she was still capable of. When James brought Sophie home in October 2023, something shifted inside Kate. The obsession was immediate. Kate engineered meetings, sent constant messages, touched Sophie in ways that crossed lines. Margaret noticed everything and confronted Kate. Kate gaslit her. "You're paranoid. You're insecure." In February, Kate seduced Sophie in her office. They began meeting in hotels. Sophie became Kate's entire focus. But Sophie wasn't what she seemed. Sophie had been hired by someone to infiltrate the household. That someone was David Hayes, Margaret's estranged son from before she met Kate. For 15 years, David had been angry at his mother for coming out, for lying about who she was. But recently he'd reconciled. Or so Margaret thought. Really, David wanted his inheritance back. He'd hired Sophie to create chaos, to expose Kate, to give Margaret reason to cut Kate out of her will and restore David as the primary heir. Sophie had done her job perfectly. Margaret discovered the affair and realized Kate was dangerous. More concerning, Margaret called her lawyer, Gerald Mitchell, to change her will. She wanted to remove Kate entirely and restore David as primary beneficiary. The meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. But Kate was in the next room when Margaret made that call. Kate heard everything. Kate realized the poison she'd been administering, slowly, in Margaret's morning coffee, wasn't working fast enough. Margaret was going to cut her out. Kate stood to lose $47 million. Kate decided to accelerate the timeline. That Tuesday night, Kate broke into Margaret's home. The confrontation that followed seemed like an accident. Margaret falling, hitting her head. But it was murder dressed as desperation. Margaret died before she could change her will. The forensic report confirmed arsenic poisoning over weeks. The coffee mug Kate had given Margaret years ago contained traces. Every morning for a month, Kate had been slowly killing her partner while creating chaos through Sophie to keep her emotionally destabilized. But the investigation revealed something darker. Detective Webb interviewed David Hayes, Margaret's son, who'd only recently reconciled with his mother. David admitted he'd hired Sophie to infiltrate the household and expose Kate. He claimed he just wanted to restore his inheritance, that he didn't know Kate would resort to murder. Yet the timing was suspicious. David's reconciliation. Sophie's arrival. The poisoning beginning shortly after. Margaret's sudden decision to reconcile with David and change her will. It all pointed to orchestration. "Did you know about the poisoning?" Webb asked David during interrogation. "No," David said firmly. "I wanted the affair exposed. I wanted my mother to see Kate for what she was. But I didn't want my mother dead." But Webb couldn't prove otherwise. And David had motive, $47 million motive. Sophie, when questioned, claimed she'd been paid to cause relationship chaos, nothing more. She said she didn't know about the poisoning. She said she didn't know Kate would resort to violence. Yet Sophie had benefited too. Kate's obsession with her had been real. Sophie had gained access to Kate's business contacts, had received expensive gifts, had leveraged the affair into opportunities she couldn't have gotten otherwise. Webb couldn't prove Sophie was complicit in the murder either. In the interrogation room, with her lawyer present, Kate maintained her story about the fall. But when confronted with the arsenic evidence, She went silent. The poisoning was separate, she finally said. I was angry. I wanted her to suffer. But I didn't plan to kill her. Then what was the break-in about? Webb asked. I heard her on the phone with her lawyer. She was changing her will. Cutting me out. After 15 years together, she was going to leave me with nothing and give everything to David, a son she hadn't spoken to in years. I panicked. I came to make her understand. I came to make her stay. But she fell. She was already weak from the poison. She was confused. When I tried to stop her from leaving, she fell. The poison had made her fragile. I didn't push her. I just couldn't let her go. Webb realized then that Kate was telling a truth within her lie. Kate had poisoned Margaret deliberately. But the final act, the break-in, the confrontation, the fall, might have been something else. Desperation. Last resort. A woman watching her perfect life collapse, trying to hold on to it by any means necessary. But the law didn't care about nuance. Premeditated poisoning was murder. The fall was inconsequential. Kate Owen was charged with first-degree murder and sentenced to 30 years in prison. David Hayes was investigated for conspiracy but never charged. The evidence wasn't sufficient. He inherited his mother's $47 million, as Margaret's will now stood, unchanged, because she'd never made it to that Thursday 2 p.m. appointment with her lawyer. Sophie Chin disappeared from the public narrative. She was never charged. She simply vanished, possibly using some of the money Kate had spent on her to start fresh somewhere else. James never spoke publicly about his mother's conviction. He changed his last name and moved away. And Margaret Hayes? She existed now only in the gap her absence created. A woman wealthy enough to help thousands but powerless to protect herself from the people closest to her. In the end, 3 people had benefited from Margaret Hayes' death. Kate got 15 years in prison for what she claimed was an accident. David got $47 million he'd never have received if Margaret had changed her will. Sophie got whatever she'd negotiated with David, plus the memories of being desired by someone powerful enough to poison for her. And Margaret got a grave. The case was closed. The crime was solved. But no one could shake the feeling that the real conspiracy had never been fully exposed. That somewhere, someone had orchestrated all of this, the affair, the poisoning, the will, the death, with cold calculation. Someone had played 3 broken people against each other and walked away clean. The question was, who? And would anyone ever know the answer? Remember to like, subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments section.